ticket. Good evening to all. Let's see, how's my voice? It looks pretty okay on my end. It looks like we've got optimal audio levels and we are hitting it hard. What's today? Here in America, it's Friday, 9:42 p.m. on August the 22nd, the year of our Lord 2025. What I want to talk to today is talk about tonight, I should say, are the things I've been ranting about for quite some time about how this thing that has been called the Gaza war, or more obviously that's BS. The actual term for it is Gaza genocide. The Gaza prison break that happened on October 7th. These things are not new. There's nothing new under the sun. These things have happened over and over and over again throughout history, and it's just empire never learning. And it's empire, the American empire, Israel wants to have an empire themselves. This whole greater Israel project that they want is just a Russian doll of empire. It's their empire, and inside of our empire here in the United States of America. But we never learn. So just like the Soviets didn't learn when they went in Afghanistan, we didn't learn when we went into Vietnam. Alexander the Great also didn't learn when he went into Afghanistan. As it's been said, Afghanistan is the place where empires go to die. There's this idea out there that you can just have overwhelming force, overwhelming technology, overwhelming force, and you can just take whatever land and then, more importantly, hold that territory. Throughout history, again, this has just been shown not to be the case. You can take whatever you want. You can kill as many people as you want. You can do a genocide, but really that's your only two options, is to genocide the indigenous population, so there literally can't be any resistance to you, or you have to have the consent of the vanquished. But what you cannot do is have the indigenous population keep them alive, and exploit them while you're like holding their territory. That will never work. It's never worked in the history, because it's like dudes say in jail, right? If you've ever talked to a guy who's cutting up and he says, look, I'm not worried about these. It's not that I'm smarter than the prison guards. I can get away with whatever I need to. It's not that we run the jail, right? If you talk to these dudes or watch these kind of jail stories on YouTube, they'll say like the inmates run the jail because that guy who's the guard he's only doing an 8 or 12 hour shift, right? Well, I'm in here for 24 hours a day thinking about his movements, watching him move, seeing the way he moves, and moving myself accordingly. That's why that kind of mindset, you cannot dominate people like that. It just cannot happen. And when you look at, the thing is, when you look at Israel and you think about their actual expectations and their actual like designs on this whole greater Israel project, it has nothing to do with defeating Hamas or the rest of the resistance, the PIJ, PFLP, any of that, Hamas. It has nothing to do with that. They don't want that. What they want to do is genocide the population, because this is the only thing that makes sense. They are incurring losses at a rate that is really unsustainable. So what they really want to do is avoid conflict with the actual fighters, kill the population, and then that does two things. When you finish off the genocide, that does two things. Number one, it gives the resistance nothing to fight over, except there's nobody left to defend their home. So you would hope that they would just psychologically break and they would give up. And through the tunnel systems, they would move. They would escape to Egypt, or however they're moving things in and out of the tunnel systems into Gaza under Israel's nose, right? And then two, even if they didn't do that, the idea that now you've killed all the civilian population And you can just do endless bombing runs supported by the United States over and over and over again and keep them underground. And every time they pop up to show their, pop up to resist you, you could just call in an airstrike unimpeded by any kind of, there about civilian casualties. That's their real objective here. It can't be to eliminate Hamas. It cannot be, because they are doing the absolute opposite of that. They are fine with taking losses against Hamas if it means completely wiping the Palestinian population off the map. And even that is a losing strategy at this point. Even that, okay, let's say that, for instance, Israel completes their genocide, right? Well, then Israel is now, it's already too late for them as a state. Now they're a pariah state. No reputable country is going to want to associate, do any kind of trade. It's going to be worse in South Africa. And what they're hoping is that because they are a colony, they are a client state of the United States, that we will be able to force the issue and make other countries trade with Israel and treat Israel like a completely normal country and not a genocidal apartheid, ethno state. But we here in America don't even have international juice like that anymore. Like, no one, like, we're not respected. No one is worried about we're still the strongest military force in the world, but look how Russia is treating us. Russia is dog walking us when it comes to Ukraine, because any country with, nuclear, it's been shown. I mean, this is how you deal with the United States. You, 1, get nukes. 2, hold on to nukes. Never let them go. So if you're aligned with a nuclear country, a nuclear armed country, or you have nukes yourself, all you have to do is just tell America no. North Korea is a great example of this. North Korea has the weirdest, jankiest bombs ever, but the idea that they can even launch anything is enough to make America go, we're good. We don't want none of that. That's how it rolls. So these countries, we don't have motion like that anymore to dictate to these countries how to move. That's the fact. So Israel is finished. I mean, I keep hearing that the two-state solution is now done. Absolutely. Like, the idea, it was never real. It was always a scam. And I even fell for that. I didn't know that. I always was like, oh, I'm a two-state solution guy. It was always a scam. But now even the idea of that scam is finito. And it needed to die anyway. So Israel as a nation is done. They're just in a slow death spiral, much like the United States Empire, but they will fall first before we do, obviously. So let's, I figure we get into some current events, and then we do a little history lesson. Let's go to the observation deck of the ship, and then we'll get to it. All right. Let's crank up the YouTube video that I had prepared, ready to go. Let me move it here. And let me see. Aha. I guess we'll eat our vegetables, and then we'll eat our dessert. So let's start with Deutsche Welle, German news, with what does taking over Gaza City actually mean? Let's start with that.
Military says that it has entered the first stages of its planned assault on Gaza City, that it has had skirmishes with Hamas fighters on the outskirts of the city. The development comes just hours after Israel's defense.
And these aren't skirmishes. These are Hamas is dog walking them right now. Hamas is mollywhopping the IOF. And we'll get into that later with evidence. I just don't say this kind of stuff to say it. Like, I'm going to show you how this works in real time.
Minister approved a deployment plan to take over the area. The plan sees some extra 60,000 reservists being called up for the operation. Human rights groups warn the offensive will worsen an already dire humanitarian crisis as it takes place in some of Gaza's most densely populated areas. Palestinians in Gaza are now facing the possibility of, again, being displaced.
Palestinians pick through the ruins in the aftermath of an Israeli strike on a displacement camp in Gaza City. Israel has been continuing its strikes on the city and the surrounding areas, prompting thousands of people to flee south. Earlier this week offered a moment of hope when Hamas said it would accept a new ceasefire proposal. But now that hope is looking dim. Israel says it is not interested in, quote, partial deals, and called for the release of all the hostages still being held by Hamas. Then came the news.
No, Israel's not interested in any deal at all. They're interested in completing the genocide. They don't care about hostages. They don't care about any of that. They don't care about even fighting Hamas, like I said earlier. Their plan is a genocide. There's no way that you move like this and incur this many losses and put your own people at this kind of risk by dropping bombs on their head. When I'm talking about their people, I'm talking about the actual hostages. There's no way you do that if your goal is not genocide. And they'll tell you that themselves. And people say that the Israeli government lies all the time. They never lie. The Israeli government never lies. You just have to go to their posts and videos and hit the translate button from Hebrew into whatever your preferred language is, and that will tell you the truth every time. Now, every time they speak in English to the American public, that is an absolute lie, 100%. English, it's a lie. Hebrew, it's 100% the truth. And they'll tell you straight up in Hebrew, we want to wipe the Palestinians off the face of the earth. That is the plan. Not to defeat Hamas, not to get hostages back, to complete the genocide.
News that Israel's defense minister has approved a plan to widen operations and seize Gaza City, which it believes is Hamas' main political and military stronghold. With Israeli tanks lining up on the border and tens of thousands of reservists being...
And that's how you know they're telling lies, because they're like, oh, we have to seize Gaza City because it's their last remaining stronghold, which is absolutely false. They're being attacked everywhere in the enclave, everywhere in the envelope, everywhere on the strip. Simultaneously, at all times, the IOF is incurring losses. They're absolutely lying. And this is, remember when they said they had full occupational control just a couple months ago of the Gaza Strip? What happened to that? It was never true. It was never true. They never had operational control. They have no idea about the tunnel systems. They have no idea where their hostages are. The only reason they got any of them back is because, one, there was a short ceasefire and they got some of them back, and they just stumbled into some of them. That's it. For a country that employs so much intelligence and has full operational control of the sky as far as aircraft and drones, but their intel is bunk. Obviously it's bunk because they wouldn't be taking the losses. They wouldn't be where they are, getting hit the way they're getting hit if they had any kind of operational control.
Being called up, Gazans are worried.
We try to be optimistic about the war ending, but suddenly we've lost hope. Any talk of a deal is no longer useful. Hamas agrees to a deal. Israel refuses, and vice versa. All we want is to be safe.
We thought there would be a truce, but waking up to the news that 60,000 soldiers are entering the Gaza Strip, this is very, very, very catastrophic news.
I'm not optimistic about the war ending. They will refuse as always. Every day we come here for food, but without receiving anything. Instead, they shoot at us.
While the ceasefire proposal has not been officially rejected, optimism, like many things here in Gaza, is in very short supply.
Well, our coverage continues now with our senior international correspondent, Fanny Fichar. She joins me from Jerusalem. Fanny, what does taking over Gaza City mean? I mean, what is the Israeli military planning to do?
Basically seizing, occupying more and more territory of the Gaza Strip, and most of it is already under Israel's control. But their latest push here, wanting to move into Gaza City and seizing what they consider the last biggest remaining stronghold of not only Hamas militants but various militant groups, is of course an escalation if really this offensive is going to move ahead. But everything, even though there is some cautious optimism here on the streets of Jerusalem among some people I've been speaking to today, that maybe there's still a ceasefire possible, what you see with regard to the statements made by Israeli authorities today, by Israel's defense minister, it is to give a green light and to push into Gaza City. And obviously that means on the ground for the Palestinians looking.
And that's why, like, the Israeli government, as a kind of stretch goal, let's just call it a demonic, sick stretch goal, is to break the will of the Palestinian people and hopefully have them turn on the resistance forces, or at a minimum stop joining the resistance forces after their families get killed. But the reason why that can't happen is because Palestinians are the most educated people on earth. Literally, I'm not making this up. Their literacy rates are through the roof. These are people of just unbelievable determination and unbelievable resolve. And they're not stupid. They know the same thing that I just told you, that it's not about defeating Hamas. It's not about getting rid of the resistance. It's about completing the genocide and Israel becoming an imperial power unto itself in the region. And the few Palestinians that will remain, they can exploit them for labor like they've been doing inside of Greater Israel for forever, since 1948. They understand this. They understand that, much like the Vietnamese, it's victory or death. There's no other way for them. They'll say it themselves. Drop a nuke on us and martyr us, or set us free, because we know there's no middle ground to where Palestinian existence can be with this genocidal ethno-state on its borders.
At the fact that around 1 million people are estimated to be in and around Gaza City. It's very densely populated, so the first question comes to your mind: how do you want to root out Hamas militants believed to be in a vast tunnel system without harming civilians? But this is exactly what Israel is keen to do, pushing ahead with their plan, calling up on 60,000 reservists that are supposed to report to duty by September 2nd. While some people still hope, maybe there's still about 10 days until that, maybe there's still time to reach a ceasefire deal with Hamas militants, which would actually mean a 6-day truce. But really, everything looks more towards escalation than looking towards winding down the planned military operations.
And funny, these 60,000 additional reservists, I mean, this is a major deployment that we're talking about. Does the IDF, does the Israeli military, does it enjoy broad public support for a measure like this? I mean, as we understand it, criticism of the war in Gaza is surging among Israelis.
It's really interesting to look at numbers, actually, because when I started covering post-October 7th, 2023, and looking at polls back then, it was about 10 to 20% of Israelis who opposed the start of the Gaza war and the ongoing Gaza war. Now we are speaking about 60 to 70% of Israelis who say this should end. And what I find quite interesting, these are not only ordinary citizens or relatives of hostages who are still being held captive in the Gaza Strip, but also people who used to serve.
And here's the thing, too. Much like protest here in the United States, if it's not backed up by direct action, which God bless the Israelis refuseniks, because refusing to serve in the IDF is direct action unto itself. You're depriving the IDF your body, which is the main thing they need right now to take and attempt to hold territory. So God bless that. But if you're not doing direct action, just like, because you have to think about Israel as a mini United States. The United States does not care about protest until you start messing with the money, until you start messing with the infrastructure. Then all of a sudden we care about protest. Same thing here in Israel. Got to put yourself in the mindset, just like an American mindset of the Israeli government. Their mindset is, you got to understand a thing before you can defeat a thing. Their mindset is, look, people are upset right now, but the news cycle is quick. We finish off the Palestinians. We do a greater Israeli project, and then people will forget about this. They'll feel secure in their first world lifestyle that's paid for by U.S. tax dollars, and they'll forget all about this. That is their mindset. I don't think that's true because the world isn't going to forget at all. I just don't see how this can be a normal, even if they achieve all of their objectives. I just don't see how the rest of the world is going to look at this. We're past the point of just a blip in the news cycle. This has now made an indelible imprint onto human history and will be studied it'll be studied like this. This will be 100 years from now. It'll be this weird little picadillo of, man, can you believe the people who almost got genocided, tried to genocide? And when I say the people, I do not want to tie for a zillion times. I do not want to tie the religion of Judaism or ethnically Jewish people to the state of Israel. But that's how it'll be seen. It'll be one of these weird little things in history that people will go, man, how did that happen? It'll look so obvious in hindsight, just like the rise of Nazism and the Holocaust, to where people say, I can't believe they let that happen. I can't believe it'll seem so far away from whatever reality, if the world is still kicking and we don't kill ourselves. But there's no way that Israel comes out of this. My point is, there's no way that they come out of this as a normal country. Not at all. And so right now, they don't care. Right now, it looks like they're on top. It looks like they're doing whatever they want to do, but really, Israel's running out of options. They're really having to press the hammer down and step on the gas pedal because they know the window to do this, to do this great Israel project, is getting smaller and smaller and smaller by the day.
Serve in the Israeli military or in the Israeli Air Force who say this is an endless war. There's no clear strategy behind it. Let's end it. But this is just one part of the debate. The other one is among reservists who are to report to duty. Why is it that ultra-Orthodox Jews do not have to report, even though the Supreme Court has made a decision last year to make sure that this is fair and everybody needs to report? It's hardly implemented, or just to a very limited degree, that everyone, including ultra-Orthodox.
Just like Vietnam, people are burning draft cards. I'm telling you, this is the most almost one-to-one analog to Vietnam, the Vietnam War, the war of American aggression.
Orthodox Jews also need to report. So certainly it's going to be debated much more, playing out on the streets, more protests against the ongoing Gaza war. Only who in the Israeli government is going to listen, but because what nearly 2 years of the ongoing conflict has shown, that there's more escalation and no prospect of actually a long-term ceasefire that then would move towards a complete end of the Gaza war.
And finally, we want to move now from the Gaza Strip to the occupied West Bank. Israel's government today granted final approval for a controversial settlement in the occupied West Bank that effectively cuts the area in two. The E1 block backs up to the already large settlement of Mal Adunim, which, along with other settlements, is considered settlement for a strip to the settlement in the occupied Bank. Israel's government today granted final approval for a controversial settlement in the.
That's not controversial. It's fucking illegal. That's like saying a controversial robbery, a controversial cold-blooded killing. This is illegal. These settlements are fucking illegal under international law. This is disgusting that, Western media, which is what DW is, they're German Western media, still, at the date of August 22nd, 2025, is still reporting this, like it's some kind of, well, this side says this, and that side says that, and we'll never know the truth. Absolutely disgusting.
The occupied West Bank that effectively cuts the area in two. The E1 block backs up to the already large settlement of Mal Adunim, which, along with other settlements, is considered illegal under international law. Israeli settlement in E1 has been under consideration for more than 20 years, but was shelved following pressure from previous U.S. administrations. Palestinians and human rights groups say settlements in the area could end any hope for a future Palestinian state. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to maintain indefinite control over the occupied West Bank, annexed East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip. So, Fanny, I want to ask you, how is this being reported inside Israel? I mean, Are Israelis being told that these settlements will be yet another hurdle to creating any potential future Palestinian state?
Well, if you watch the ordinary channels here in Israel, certainly not, but it's rather portrayed as something coming close to what's being called as a victory, especially amongst also, which echoes with far-right politicians in the far-right coalition government. We heard Mr. Smotrich, the finance minister, saying last week that going ahead with this E1 settlement plan basically buries the idea of any Palestinian state or the prospect of it. He even said...
Exactly. That's, like I said earlier, that's what this is about. This is them showing their hand. This is them taking the mask off and saying this is our actual intentions to create an Israeli empire throughout the Middle East. First, if we have our way, we will take Gaza, wipe the Palestinians, genocide the Palestinians, then we will slowly stretch out to Lebanon and Yemen and all that. Syria included.
That there's nothing and no one to recognize last week. What we hear from Palestinians speaking in the occupied West Bank is that they're really concerned.
Do you hear what she said? Let's rewind that. Let's see. She just said exactly she just proved exactly my point.
Aspect of it. He even said there's nothing and no one to recognize last week.
Right. That's the plan, is to be like, whoopsie doopsie, there's no more Palestinians, so how can there be a Palestinian state? All their souls just left their body. We have no idea how that happened. I guess somebody's got to take... What did that guy say on the video? Somebody's going to steal your house. It might as well be me, and you can't even live in it anymore because you're dead from some unknown reason. We have no idea how that happened, but you're no longer there.
What we hear from Palestinians speaking in the occupied West Bank is that they're really concerned the more this ongoing Gaza war escalates, the less space they also have in the occupied West Bank. So we're not only speaking about an expansion of control in the Gaza Strip, but also in the occupied West Bank, which, as you just pointed out, is considered illegal under international law.
Finally,
something that's been also the opinion by the United Nations and the International Court of Justice. Regardless of that, it really looks like that the current government is very much emboldened and feels this is their momentum to press ahead with this controversial plan. And if really put in action, we're speaking here about thousands of apartments built in a place, in an area near Jerusalem, just east of Jerusalem, that is actually considered to be part of a future Palestinian state. And while we hear a lot of condemnation internationally, we did not hear any condemnation, any objection to this plan by Israel's biggest supporter, and that is the United States. Hence, what do you expect? Probably even more moves like that, more settlements, as long as Israel really feels on a political level that they can go ahead with that, and there's no one really stopping them from doing that.
Our senior international correspondent, Fanny Fichar, with the latest from Jerusalem for us tonight. Fanny, as always, thank you. Well, to further unpack the plans for a new settlement in the occupied West Bank, I'm joined now by Mustafa Barghouti. He's a Palestinian politician and civil rights activist. It's good to have you with us. Let me just get your reaction to news about this E1 block and what was decided today.
Well, it's drastic news. It tells you three things. First of all, that Israel is led by a fascist government that is absolutely extreme, and their whole plan is about eliminating the presence of the Palestinian people. Second, it tells you that Israel would not have dared to go that far in violating international law if it wasn't for the status of impunity they are enjoying, thanks to the American support and thanks to the fact that European countries are abstaining from imposing any sanctions on Israel. Third, this act means the final blow to the whole idea of two-state solution or peace based on two-state solution.
Why do you say that? Mr. Barghouti, why do you say this is the final blow to the two-state solution?
Because this settlement will simply cut the West Bank, shatter it into two pieces without any kind of contiguity. You can't.
And even if they can't get that across, and even if they can't get that done for whatever reason, let's say there was, there's a resistance movement in the West Bank that pushes the IDF out. There are resistance in the West Bank, but it's nothing like in the actual Gaza Strip. But let's say, like, materially they can't get that done. The mask is off now. Like, the two-state solution, it was never alive. It was just a zombie put up by Israel to buy them time to try to reach this moment to be able to complete a genocide. But this is a good thing. This is a good thing that the world is seeing that, look, it was never about coexistence. It was never about peace. It was always about these people must be murdered. These people must be, at a minimum, ethnically cleansed. And I'm glad that the world is finally seeing that.
Can't have a Palestinian state on the West Bank and Gaza if West Bank has no contiguity of its parts. Second, because this act will isolate Jerusalem, which should become the capital of the Palestinian state. It will isolate it completely from the rest of the occupied West Bank. And finally, this act will displace thousands more of Palestinian people and destroy many Palestinian communities in the vicinity, in the area, making these people refugees again. So if you put that all together, this, of course, undermines completely the possibility for a Palestinian state. But one more factor,
Yes.
It's not just E1. This is not the tip of the iceberg, because you can see settlements expanding, especially during the last 2 years, everywhere in the West Bank. And we are already cut into pieces of ghettos that are separated from each other by 1,000 Israeli military checkpoints, by gates that make many Palestinian villages and communities as small prisons. And we are unable to have joint economic life. We are unable to have proper educational system. We cannot even provide healthcare in a free manner because of the Israeli settlements and the Israeli control of major main roads. The West Bank is the only area in the whole world where you have not only segregated communities, but also segregated roads.
Right. It's called apartheid. It's not, again, there's nothing new under the sun. This is South Africa. This is Bantustans. You have to have separate license plates, driving on separate roads. It's a totally parallel society where you turn a whole race, a whole ethnicity, a whole nationality of people into second-class citizens just to be dominated and exploited by the in-group.
Highways are exclusive for Jewish Israelis.
Well, what about the Palestinian Authority, and what about the leadership of Mahmoud Abbas as
They're a joke. They're a joke. Fatah is I'm sorry to say this, but like, Fatah stands out there. Fatah is a joke. Fatah is it's the Vichy government. It's Vichy France of Palestine. That's what it is. It's really not that deep.
been reaction coming from that corner?
Unfortunately, the Palestinian Authority has been disabled to a large extent by Israel, which is, by the way, confiscating most of its resources, tax revenue that should run the authority. Up till now, Israel is withholding more than $2.5 billion of the Palestinian tax revenue. But more than that, the Palestinian Authority has been stripped from all its authorities. The Israeli settlement building is happening not only in Area C, but also in Area B. And the Israeli army invades even Area A and destroys houses like they have done to 3 refugee camps in Jenin and in Tulkarem.
Well,
so you are talking practically about an authority without authority.
Mr. Marketing, why do you think the approval came now? How do you explain the timing of this?
Because, as I said, Israel is led by a fascist government, which thinks now is the time to decisively end the Palestinian presence.
Man, I did not pre-watch this. This man's just much smarter than me, who can see the writing on the wall, saying the exact same things that I'm telling you.
Here. Their plan in Gaza is a total ethnic cleansing of 2.2 million people. And this is the Israeli solution to the fact that there are 7.3 million Palestinians on the land of historic Palestine versus 7.1 million Jewish people, regardless of the fact that 7.5 million Palestinians are refugees in other countries. And Israel now does not want to accept two-state solution, does not want to accept one democratic state solution. So their solution is ethnic cleansing. And
but what about if it changes?
Because they have the American support, sorry?
What about if it changes in the future if there...
It can't change. It can't change. Those of you who are movie buffs, if you've ever watched Godfather Part 1, where the idea is like Sollozzo tries to kill the Don and he misses, and then he's saying, you know, I'm the hunted one now, Mike. Like, what can I do? And Michael understands that he has to kill Sollozzo because the key is killing Pop. Everything else that Sollozzo says is bullshit. The key is getting Palestinians off that land, off of Gaza, completing the genocide, or at a minimum, giving them the mercy of ethnic cleansing. That is the key. Everything else Israel says is bullshit.
Were to be a move for a two-state solution, isn't it possible that these settlements, just like the E1 that we're talking about, that those settlements could be removed, that we could move back to something closer to the 1967 borders?
That's all Hamas has been saying. They're saying 1967 borders. That's it. They're not even saying, like, you know, pre-1948. They're just saying 1967 borders, and that is antithetical to the greater Israeli project, and that's why they can never allow that to happen, and that's why it will be their downfall. Much like Star Wars, where Princess Leia tells Darth Vader to his face, the more star systems you try to hold in your hand, the more they will slip through your fingers. That is what's happening right now.
They should be removed if you want to have a Palestinian state. You can't have a Palestinian state with all these
But in theory, it's
settlements.
possible, though. Would you agree?
It's not. It's very difficult because now you are talking already about 800,000 Israeli illegal settlers settling in the West Bank, and with the new plans, this number will become 1 million. So in reality, maybe the only alternative we will have is to have a one democratic state with equal rights for everybody, which means abolishing apartheid and abolishing the Israeli racist discriminatory law, which says that the right of self-determination on the land of historic Palestine is exclusive for Jewish people. This idea of Jewish supremacy is the thing that is feeding anti-Semitism.
Well,
And the reality is that Netanyahu is the biggest advocate of anti-Semitism because of his behavior.
What would you say this evening is more likely, in your opinion, a two-state solution or a one-state solution?
At this moment, we are facing existential threat as
Yeah, we're not even in the realm where we can talk about these kind of things right now. Those kind of decisions are done at a table. We're talking about the material need to stop a genocide right now. These questions are meaningless when Palestinians are being starved and murdered in mass.
Palestinian people. The biggest risk today is ethnic cleansing of our people in Gaza first and then in the West Bank. That's the threat we have to face. And then if we manage to stop it, and we will not be able to stop it unless the international community decides to apply the same rules they have applied to Russia, which is impose sanctions on Israel to stop this violation of international law.
Mustafa Barghouti, as always.
America's going down. I mean, Israel is going down the tubes, taking America with it, and also pulling the farce of the liberal international rule-based order with it. The United Nations has been shown to be nothing. They've been shown to be a toothless tiger that has no power, no influence, nothing. They're a scam. And something new, to have any kind of semblance of order and justice in this world, something new must arise.
We appreciate your time.
They are a dead organization. They are a zombie organization. They will go the League of Nations. No country will put any weight behind anything the United Nations has to say from here on out going forward if it doesn't act and put blue helmets on the ground right now, which we all know is not going to happen, because the United States the UN, again, is just an extension of American imperial dominance.
Appreciate you taking the time to talk with us this evening.
I hate that I wasted so much time in high school in Model UN. What a waste of my time.
I want to cross over now to journalist Kareem El-Gahari. He joins us from Cairo in Egypt. Kareem, good to see you. Tell us, for people who may not be following this very closely, what does taking over Gaza City exactly mean?
Well, in a way, the operation is already ongoing, as the Israeli army is operating already in 4 different areas in Gaza City and the neighboring Jabalia refugee camp as we speak, preparing this bigger offensive that is announced there. People describe the situation that right now they're experiencing the most intensive bombardments and military operations in Gaza City yet. More and more people are getting phone calls by the Israeli army being told to leave the area. The majority of people, though, decide not to leave far away, but to stay close. Most of them right now are escaping to the western parts of Gaza City instead of moving further south and to the central strip because they don't trust any longer the so-called Israeli safe zones that were designated for them, and because they are permanently attacked too. So if you call people today in Gaza, the last days, there's really a sense of desperation in Gaza City. Some people are really saying on the phone, let's just get it all over with.
Yeah, victory or death.
I mean, that's a comment in itself, isn't it? And you've got Israel's military also announcing today that it's calling up 60,000 reservists. I mean, this looks like an escalatory move, but what exactly are these 60,000 reservists? What are they being called up for?
Well, that basically shows that, of course, Netanyahu's plan is to widen the operation in and around Gaza City. It's not only that the army is supposed to move in, but there's also already ongoing an operation of blowing up and bulldozing whole areas around Gaza City to make it uninhabitable. Many Palestinians believe that this follows an already announced plan to concentrate them in the south while the Israeli army remains having security control over the rest of the Gaza Strip and displacing people from there. I mean, you don't call 60,000 reservists in just for a short-term military operation.
And there's another big announcement. It's the plan of a new settlement in the occupied West Bank, the so-called E1 area. Why is this particular settlement, why is it so controversial now?
Well, the reason that's controversial, it's not
because it's fucking illegal. Stop calling it controversial.
Only that there's 3,400 new settlement units on Palestinian lands, but the decisive thing here is geography and location. If this project is finished, it will basically cut the West Bank into 2 separate parts. And in addition, it would also isolate the Palestinian East Jerusalem from the rest of the West Bank. In other words, if this really is going to be executed and finished, it would mean basically the death sentence for any independent Palestinian state and a 2-state solution, because there's practically no continuous territory left for a Palestinian state then.
And Karim, we know that plans for this settlement, they have been in the works for a long time, but due to international pressure, Israel had always held off on them. So why is Israel pushing through with it now?
Well, if you listen to the words of the...
Because time's running out. I mean, these are easy questions to answer because time's running out. They see that the world is turning against Israel, and they have to complete this now before the United States, like we've always done with all of our little colonial projects in the past, decides that we're tired of this and we don't want to play no more. And that time is coming. So they're like, we have a limited runway to try to murder as many people as is humanly possible, so we have to push now.
Through most right-wing ministers in Netanyahu's government, Finance Minister Smotrich and Security Minister Ben-Gvir, they're very, very clear about that. They say now, as many states internationally are already recognized the Palestinian states or are about to recognize a Palestinian state, they say we have to rush to basically create a situation where there's nothing left to be recognized.
And if we zoom out and look at the wider Middle East, I mean, what has been reaction from other countries to what is going on?
Well, especially the mediators, Qatar and Egypt, are right now extremely disillusioned. They tried to broker a ceasefire of 60.
They can be disillusioned all they want, but they're also client states, whether they want to admit it or not, but financially to the West. So if the West says jump, they're going to say how high. Now, they might say it in another way that makes it so a nice way to say it, so to keep their own people from, revolting. But again, these are dogs. These are the UAE, Qatar. These are all client states of the United States with no real backbone or no real agency of their own.
60 days in exchange for releasing half of the Israeli hostages in exchange for a Palestinian prisoner release, just as basically as the Americans suggested to them. Only to see that yesterday or 2 days ago, Hamas accepted the deal while there was no answer from Netanyahu to it. The same Netanyahu that is calling in now 60,000 reservists in order to basically...
They don't have 60,000. They don't have 60. They can call up whatever they want to call. They don't have 60,000 people that they haven't tapped who already aren't battle weary, PTSD'd out, permanently maimed and injured. They don't have 60,000. They don't. Their thing is they just want to run in here, kill as many people as possible, and give the resistance nothing to try and to tell them, look, you're protecting nothing. You are now defending rubble. All the people are dead. Just give it up. That's what they want.
Continue the war.
Journalist Kareem El-Gahari with the latest from Cairo. Kareem, as always, thank you.
All right, let's check out CJ Wheelerman with CNN accidentally reveals how to defeat Israel.
Hello, I'm CJ Wheelerman, and in this episode, we reveal how Arab armies, Iranian-backed militias, and even bona fide terrorist groups can best exploit Israel's growing weaknesses and vulnerabilities. But first, please remember to like and subscribe to our show. Now let's get into it. Israel has reaffirmed its objective to take control of Gaza, forcibly displace the territory's 2 million residents, and then replace them with criminal Jewish settlers, constituting an even bigger catastrophe than the Nakba of 1948, given Netanyahu's Greater Israel project promises to kill Palestinian statehood forever.
What I tell you, here it is. This is in Hebrew. Just hit translate and you're going to get the truth. You're going to hear some truth right now.
להכיר במדינה פלסטינית. יקבל מאיתנו תשובה בשטח.
One of the most censored stories in the Western media during the past 2 years is the genocidal attitudes of Israeli military and political leaders, in which they boast about killing 100 civilians per day while they take to mainstream Israeli television demanding the extermination of every man, woman, and child in Gaza.
There it is. There it is. You'll never hear this in English. You'll never hear this in English, but you can hear it every single day in Hebrew.
No honest or moral person can expect the Middle East to peacefully coexist with Zionism, the same way nobody expected the European continent to coexist with Nazism. This footage not only shows what little remains of Gaza...
Jesus Christ, just look at that. It's a fucking moon crater, dude. You like, I can't even imagine. I have dreams about Gaza, and I've never even been to the Middle East, but like I think about it so much. I have dreams about it, and this is, I just imagine it being a moonscape just like this, and like the idea that in this like heat and dust and death and how it must smell and how it must feel, people are still like finding joy and celebrating life in this just beige hell. The Palestinians are just made of stronger stuff, man.
But also provides a future glimpse of what's coming for the rest of the Arab world. If powerful states in the region, along with powerful armed militia groups, don't take a firm and defiant stand against Zionist imperialism. Instead, these Arab sellouts have lulled themselves into believing that doing nothing for Palestine will somehow save their respective regimes from Zionist aggression.
It won't. It won't, because Israel wants to do to the Middle East what America has done to the rest of the world. They want to colonize it. Palestine is just the start.
The undeniable truth is Israel can only be contained, deterred, dismantled, and defeated by meaningful military force. The unpopular truth is that boycotts, condemnations, fits of rage, and even the occasional missile strike are not going to cut it. Certainly not when you're dealing with a criminal psycho state that's not only committing genocide and stealing territory, but also threatening nuclear attacks against its neighbours. Therefore, to mitigate the undeniable threat of this rogue and barbaric state, the international community must rally together and support military intervention against the Zionist occupation. There's a desperate need for the United Nations to invoke its doctrine, known as responsibility to protect.
Honestly, the thing I'm terrified about, 100%, is this isn't even a... I'm not even being hyperbolic here. I don't see how Israel succeeds here in their quest to just murder every single Palestinian man, woman, and child. And this is going to completely backfire on them, and the state of Israel is going down the tubes at a slow death. But what happens when, because they are a nuclear power, and because they have the doctrine of the Samson doctrine, where they feel like if they're in a existential threat, they will use those nuclear weapons? What happens then? Because that happened before in the war they had against Egypt, where they were getting absolutely their backsides pushed in, and they threatened to use nukes, and the United States supplied Israel with more arms and equipment to win that war because they were afraid of using the nukes. What happens when they pull the last card that they have to play again? Will the U.S. intercede again and do an all-out boots on the ground? Because it's like just getting military hardware is not going to beat an asymmetrical resistance group. It'll have to be something else. And what do we do when they threaten this? Like, how do we insulate ourselves, the global community of sane people left, from the threat of... Because that's the only thing, again, going back to the beginning of this stream, the only thing the United States cares about is if you have nukes and you threaten to use nukes. We don't care about anything else. We don't care about protests. We don't care about what you have to say in the UN. We care about power. We care about nuclear power, which we allowed this rogue state of Israel to have. So when they threaten to use that, what is the United States going to do? Because we've capitulated to them in the past. And I hope that doesn't happen again.
Or R2P, an international norm that demands international military action against a state committing genocide.
After the world witnessed genocide in Rwanda and Bosnia, the UN adopted measures to hold governments accountable for the protection of their own citizens.
The doctrine of responsibility to protect, as you know, came out after the NATO intervention in Kosovo without a Security Council mandate. And at that time, Kofi Annan was posing the question, when is it legitimate for like-minded countries, NATO in that case, to step up to come and protect civilians without having the Security Council approval?
The R2P standard, as it's known, is pretty basic. It says that when a country is unwilling or unable to protect its citizens from mass atrocities, it is now the responsibility of the world community to intervene.
Sadly, R2P will never be invoked against Israel, certainly not while the United States enjoys veto power on the UN Security Council, therefore underscoring the urgent need for a reformation of the United Nations. But if we accept Israel must be attacked militarily to prevent the total erasure of Palestine and Palestinian life, then we must also accept another sobering reality, that Israel, with relative ease, savaged Hezbollah, pacified Iran, and neutered the Houthi militias in Yemen. Although that in no way suggests that military intervention against Israel is a hopeless cause. Certainly not after Hezbollah exposed a glaring chink in Israel's armor, specifically its air defense systems. And what's most interesting here is that CNN accidentally and unwittingly revealed a blueprint for defeating the Zionist state when it reported Hezbollah's execution of a deadly drone strike.
Interested? I'm sitting up now.
Against an Israeli army base deep inside Israeli territory in October of last year.
Moments after impact, elite Golani Brigade trainees struggle to save lives. The worst of the wounded whisked away to nearby hospitals by helicopter. Others taken by ambulance, medics swarming to the IDF base, 40 miles from the front line in Lebanon. Within hours, the toll becoming clear. 4 dead, 8 others seriously injured, making it the deadliest for troops outside of combat zones since October.
That one drone, launched deep within Lebanese territory, was able to penetrate Israeli air defenses undetected before slamming into a military base housing members of the Zionist Army's elite Golani Brigade. This should truly terrify Israel. It proves the Zionist state is not keeping pace with the fast-changing face of warfare in the modern age. Because when we take a close look at Hezbollah's drone operations against Israel, and then combine that knowledge with lessons learnt by the Ukrainian military via its resistance operations against the powerful Russian military, we see a clear blueprint for attacking Israeli occupation forces and from literally thousands of vantage points throughout the Middle East and the Mediterranean. Ukraine has demonstrated how a small dog can defeat the biggest dog in the neighborhood via the innovation.
Again, nothing new under the sun. Asymmetrical warfare has been a winning strategy when you do not have the standing army or the technology since time immemorial. And again, Empire just will not learn. Like, it's the one thing they cannot. They just will not take the lessons that have been handed to them in blood over and over and over again throughout the years. It's like, look, you can take whatever land you want, you can kill whoever you want, but holding territory where you're not wanted on somebody else's backyard is a no-go, bro. You cannot do that because you have to treat every single person in that territory that you're trying to dominate as a threat, and that's no way to live. And you're just creating more combatants by doing that. No matter how many you kill, their families are going to come back and kill you in fun and creative ways that you could never dream of.
Innovative use of easily purchased over-the-counter aerial drones. Start of 2022, Russian leaders predicted that the Ukrainian capital would fall within 72 hours due to the overwhelming discrepancy in military and economic power between the two countries.
Эта война продлится, Володя, ну максимум 3-4. Там некому будет против нас воевать.
I don't know. I mean, I see the comparison he's trying to make, but also, like, the problem with the Ukrainian war, the problem with the Ukraine-Russia war is that Ukraine's fate was sealed really when they broke the first rule of international conflict. If you go in to get the nuke, like, they let America talk them out of nukes. That's when their downfall was right there. It's if you have a bad guy, an enemy at your doorstep who you think is going to attack you, and they have nukes, you better get some too. Get nukes, hold on to nukes, never let them go under any circumstances. It's the only thing that stops these empires like Russia and the United States is to acquire the nuclear weapons and hold on to them to the death. No matter what they tell you, no matter what treaties they try to dangle in front of your face for you to sign, and we're all gonna bilaterally disarm and all this bullshit. No. It don't matter if you got one bomb. Never let it go. Ask Gaddafi. Gaddafi died in a ditch because he gave up the nukes.
Володя Зеленский сразу трухнул и ребята.
Ми не здамося і не програємо. Ми підемо до кінця. Ми будемо боротися на морях. Будемо битися в повітрі. Ми будемо захищати нашу землю, якою не була ціна. Ми будемо битися в лісах.
This is so sad because it's just all America's doing. This is all America's doing of just gassing up your buddy at the bar who's getting in a fight with the big guy and tell him that, yeah, we're going to jump him together. And then when the fight happens, America, your buddy just disappears. And he told you to, hey, let me hold your gun or your knife or whatever weapon you have on you. Give up the nukes. Don't have nukes because we got your back. This is all America's doing. It's disgusting. I feel so terrible for the Ukrainian people.
Nearly 4 years later, Kyiv still stands, with Russian forces bogged down along the front line that straddles eastern Ukraine, or what has become infamously known as the meat grinder, as Russian casualties climb into the high hundreds of thousands, draining Putin of soldiers, weapons, and treasure.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is furious. A few months ago, he ordered a massive summer offensive that was supposed to see Russia steal huge swathes of territory away from Ukraine. That hasn't happened. Instead, Russia's forces are bogged down and failing to advance, and there's a clear reason why that's happening. Ukraine's drones. Ukraine's superior drone warfare is stopping the Russian offensive cold, as Ukraine has gone to the next level with its drone warfare capability.
Ukraine's monthly drone production has surged nearly tenfold in a year, from just 20,000 per month at the start of the war to more than 200,000 per month today, with drone attacks now accounting for 80% of all Ukrainian resistance activities, resulting not only in the destruction of advancing Russian invaders, but also a staggering 10,000 armored tanks.
Just look at how the equipment explodes in hellish flames on the mines.
I want to fast forward this. I want to get through Ukraine. It's so depressing. Like, I don't even want to really focus on it.
Conflict set to enter a third year.
Despite fewer than fights.
This costs like several $100. Completely explode, something that costs millions.
This reality is not lost on Iran, which recently launched 100 kamikaze drones at Israel in response to the unlawful bombing of its nuclear sites. But what's important to understand here is that Iranian drones inflicted significant damage against Israeli military targets, despite fewer than 100 drones launched and despite Tehran giving Tel Aviv and Washington, D.C. advance warning of the attack.
Jonathan, good evening. I do want to start with some breaking news. Israel's top military spokesperson just announced that Iran has launched 100 drones at Israel. It will take them a couple of hours to get here, and likely, as we have seen in the past, they could be coupled with some sort of missile fire. But this is the first part of what we expect to be a multi-pronged response from the Iranians following these Israeli strikes overnight that came in waves, targeting Iranian nuclear facilities.
If Israel can't fully defend itself from 100 aerial drones, then it has no chance against a swarm of 500, 1,000, or even 10,000 drones slamming into the country simultaneously. Drones could become Israel's greatest nightmare, the same way they have bedeviled Russian occupation forces and the Russian homeland.
10th, 2025. In the Kharkiv region, a Ukrainian fiber optic FPV drone struck a Russian UAZ carrying infantry. The soldiers tried to get out of the vehicle, but it was already too late. The Ukrainian Signum Battalion struck 2 Russian soldiers in the Lyman sector. A soldier targeted by a drone in open terrain fought the drone for a while, but after a long chase, the drone operator hit the Russian soldier with the drone.
Oof.
The final thing to consider here is that Hezbollah and Iran are far from dead and buried. Last week's visit by Iran's top security chief to Lebanon underscores the strong political and strategic ties between the two sides amid heightened regional tensions. Therefore, there is little doubt the use of aerial drones will soon become a feature of all future resistance and deterrence operations against the Zionist state. And there's also every reason to believe that drones will eventually change the balance of power in the Middle East. Watch this space. But that's my time for today. Thanks for watching, and please remember to subscribe to.
All right, so we got through our meat, so now we can get our pudding. Let's see here.
There's the tank operation that we.
I did watch a lot of this last night. This is from yesterday. If you're not subscribed to the Electronic Intifada, I definitely would. John Elmer is kind of like a kindred spirit, like myself. He is a war artist. He loves the history of warfare, and he's going to run down a lot of the. He's going to run down the recent operations of the resistance with TOS-friendly edits, so we can watch them here on the Twitch and the YouTube and not get absolutely our channel nuked. He takes the good stuff from Telegram and then makes it TOS friendly. So here we go.
You are watching and listening to the Electronic Intifada. I am John Elmer. This is the Resistance Report
Heck yeah,
for
John.
day
Let's go.
685 of Israel's criminal genocide. I am reporting this on the 21st of August. We will start with the maps because we are going to take a look today all across Gaza. You can see these are still the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs mapping that were used. The purple is the shoot to kill zones. The white areas are the areas where people are living in tents. And some buildings remain in Dar al-Bala in the middle camps area. And of course, Israel is planning on invading Gaza City as part of this expanding Operation Gideon's Chariots. They couldn't decide on the name because previous weeks, as listeners and watchers of this program know, we quoted many times Israeli military officials saying that Gideon's Chariots operation that began on May 19th was over. But now they just decided last night that they're going to be calling the Gaza City invasion Gideon's Chariots B, Part B. So what we have been watching for the last 3 months, I guess, is Gideon Chariots A. So the Israeli military released some figures about that operation just yesterday. The operation that effectively began in March when Israel reneged on the ceasefire agreement that was guaranteed by the United States, Egypt, and Qatar. Israel reneged on the agreement, which was a multi-phased agreement, and Israel pulled out of that, leaving their captives in Gaza, who they have repeatedly proven don't matter at all. And this Gaza City invasion will be the final straw of that for those captives. But Israel has not achieved any of its military goals in Gaza that were clearly articulated. Return the captives through violence, destroy the Qassam brigades, destroy the government capacity in the Gaza Strip, and make Gaza no longer a threat. Those were their stated goals of the war, and they've achieved none of them. And so they're just continuing to fight. And this plan for Gaza City involved the call up of 130,000 reservists to fight. There's talk of it being a 14 brigade combat operation, which is a significant operation, upwards of 5 divisions participating in the battle in Gaza City. And based on the notices that were given out to soldiers for the reservists, some of them went out this week. That operation will begin. It was supposed to begin. It was planned to begin October 7th, but Netanyahu's trying to push that date up. The reservists are going to be called in 3 waves that begin at the beginning of September. So we'll have to track how that goes. Looking at this map, just to say, the purple is the shoot to kill zone. It's not the zone that Israel controls, because when they were bragging about this, they released a statement the other day that talked about there has been 10,000 airstrikes by the Israeli Air Force jets, helicopters, and drones since March 18th, since they collapsed the sea.
Exactly. So what? All those airstrikes are not affecting, Hamas command and control centers from underground. All you're doing is, they're bragging about the airstrikes because they're doing the thing that their number one objective is, again, to murder civilian population, to complete the genocide. Hamas is just a secondary objective. Do not let them lie to you about this.
Ceasefire, 10,000.
That's the only way they can feel any kind of satisfaction with the way they're moving right now.
The Gaza Health Ministry in that period of time has said that upwards of 11,000 Palestinians have been killed in that period. And Israel says Gideon's Chariots' goal was to capture 75% of the Gaza Strip. That is simply an absurd and not serious statistic. And the blue area, the purple area on this map is not Israeli control. They do not have operational control in those areas, as we're going to see today on the program. But there's nothing like that. They largely withdrew from Beit Lahia. People went back to Beit Lahia this week and saw For example, Kamal Adwan Hospital completely destroyed. People yesterday managed to get back into the Tufa neighborhood in Gaza City, in eastern Gaza City. And the mass area of Khan Yunis that you see down at the bottom of that map is not controlled by the Israelis. They're operating mainly within the 2 corridors that they created. We will show a closer map when we get to that point. But just wanted to say 10,000 airstrikes, that's what the Israelis are talking about, and that is how their field reports read. They're very, very proud of that. But of course, as Nora reported, and
John Elmer is such a gift from God. Like, but this guy is on like every intelligence agency's list, man. Like, it's crazy. Like, the dossier that the CIA, Mossad, and every other Western-backed intelligence agency has on him must be just insane. You could probably, if you printed them all the sheets out of his dossiers, you could probably wallpaper your house with them.
and we've reported on this show a number of times, the Israelis are also using all kinds of other weaponry. Artillery doesn't count in those, tank fire doesn't count in those, and they're using the M113 robot vehicle-borne IEDs, creating essentially a tank car bomb that they've been using in increasing numbers, particularly over the last week or two. And maybe we'll get into those and how they work on a future show, but today's show's packed, so we will move forward with that. We're going to start in the north, so we take a look at this northern Gaza map that was this is an Electronic Intifada original. Thanks to Maxwell for these maps. They've been useful throughout the whole war. You can see the Netzarim corridor there, and you can see the Zaytun neighborhood. It abuts the Netzarim corridor, and that has been the target of a surprise operation this week. It was unannounced operation. The Israeli military didn't say it was happening until 6 days into the operation. But immediately we saw the resistance hit them as soon as they came into that neighborhood. And in terms of the reservists, the call up is right now, the immediate call up is 60,000 reservists. That will add to and create 130,000 called up for this operation. Like I said, 12 to 14 brigade level teams to participate in the Gaza invasion. This Zaytun operation is not directly connected to that Gaza City invasion, but it's a preliminary operation that is a 2-brigade operation in Zaytun, destroying hundreds of buildings. And the shortage of fighters, which we've been talking about on this show for months now, and the Israeli media talks about every day, particularly Army radio is very attuned to this, with the soldiers all constantly complaining about being overworked. I'm going to read you just word for word an Army radio report from Monday morning. Due to the shortages of soldiers, the IDF is considering reaching out to Jewish communities in the diaspora to encourage and recruit Jewish youths from abroad to its ranks. The shortage of soldiers, estimated to be around 12,000 missing from the IDF ranks, and the non-enlistment of the ultra-Orthodox are leading the army to try to exhaust every other possibility.
Brother, let me tell you how that's not happening. Ain't no way any Jews in the diaspora. Like, it used to be a cool, fun thing to be like, oh, I'm going to go serve in the IDF because, you get to do a raid. You get to do a Ela Klein-esque raid on unarmed children in Ramallah, or you get to sit around and pump yourself up and not see any real action. But now, ain't no Jewish person from a first or second world of hell, even a developing country, and the kind of people that they're going to want white, American, or European Jews, going to give up your McBurger-ass lifestyle and come on over to the Strip and get it on. Ain't no way. Now, I tell you what, if it was the other way around, and if there was somehow that people could get into the Strip and get into the tunnels and help the hero group, that call will be answered. That call would absolutely be answered. But again, ain't no white European or American Jews giving up their soft, cushy lifestyle to go get blown up by an RPG round or get drilled by an Al Ghul sniper rifle. Ain't no way. Israel is dead in the water here. They are barking up the wrong tree.
To replenish its ranks. This morning, we published, this is Army Radio, word for word, that the IDF intends to approach the large Jewish communities in the diaspora, aiming to encourage recruitment of Jewish youth of enlistment age who will come to the country for a few years to serve in the IDF. According to the work done by the Personnel Directorate on the subject, the recruitment potential among 18 to 25-year-olds in large Jewish communities is more than 10,000. So that can find their, they can.
There's a reason why the IDF field office in your local dead mall or in your city center, which are these weird cosmetic and soap stores that are staffed by young kids. When I say kids, I'm talking about people in their 20s and 30s who are Israeli IDF veterans, are not getting out of the soap hustle, and the Dead Sea Salt hustle and going back to fighting the Gaza Strip. There's a reason they're not doing that.
Replace their killed and seriously wounded soldiers that have been taken off the battlefield, in the number about 10,000. Senior IDF officials tell us at Army Radio the target we intend to set is an increase of about 600 to 700 additional soldiers each year from Jewish communities abroad. The main communities that effort will focus on are the United States and France. And I'm reporting this from Canada and can almost assure you Canada will be involved in those too. So looking at this map that we have on screen here, we're going to be focusing today on Zaytun. We're going to show operations from Shujaiya and Tufa, as well as Jabalia. And the Jabalia camp is to the north of Jabalia there, and Beit Lahia is in the upper left corner, across from adjacent to Beit Hanun, which has been turned into a moonscape. And the invasion of Gaza City is unclear exactly how this operation will take place. When it took place the first time, Israel said that they conquered Gaza and had operational control of it back in 2023 and early 2024. The attack came from the south. They came along the corridor and up through Tel El-Hawa, and also came down the coast on the western coast side from Beit Lahia down through into the beach refugee camp. And the Shati camp is the beach refugee camp. Shati put up significant resistance and held back the Israelis on their push into Gaza City. They did that with 3 full divisions at that time, and they believe they need more than that because people are not taking their call-up orders. We know from the beginning of Gideon's Chariots that at one point Army Radio was reporting on missing soldiers numbering more than half of who were supposed to come back. So we're going to start in Zaytun because that's where this operation began this week. You're seeing here a Nukba commander. He is setting up this operation, saying that this comes in light of the escalating threats of the enemy towards our people in our beloved territory. We tell them slowly and clearly, you need to understand, we are here. We are in front of you, behind you, and everywhere. And what we're looking at here is these soldiers, the Nukba force has surveillance cameras. They have maps. They have drone footage that you can see that's overlaid on top. And this is a surprise operation. And they're showing you now an Israeli position under, they've got the 2 armored troop carriers there. And the commander says that we know this battle is difficult. Here you can see the troop.
Again, what I want you to realize here is what you're seeing. I mean, you're seeing Hamas propaganda, but the thing you should be taking from it is these aren't ragtag resistance fighters fighting off the back foot. These are planned operations. It's not like they're waiting for the IDF to overrun them and now they're just firing and trying to run for the hills. They are planning operations. These could almost be called offensive if they weren't protecting their home. You understand? Like 2 years in now, 685 days in, Hamas still has command and control nodes all over the Gaza Strip. It's absolutely amazing. Again, the Palestinians are made of stronger stuff.
Troop leading procedures. They have each hill marked out on the target buildings. You can see where the Yasin archers are going to be positioned, one with a thermobaric warhead to hit the troops, two with Yasin 105s for the Namr troop carriers, and also the guerrilla action devices that they are going to take and hand deliver to the Namr troop carriers that you see there. This is one of 14 operations in Zaytun this week, targeting with Yassin's 10 IEDs and 12 artillery ops. So high quality operations immediately greeting the invasion. And this is a Nukba force, the elite commando force of the Qassam brigades. You can see they're on top of a massive map there. With detail. So they're matching the layers, the surveillance, the mapping, the troop leading procedures, the predicting of Israeli positions. They have guessed right that the Israelis will take up this building. And as you'll see in the videos that come up, there's not very many other buildings. But then they also successfully predict the route that the Israelis will withdraw from, and they have Yasin archers on the reinforcements. So just a remarkably detailed operation that we've been seeing all throughout the war. But this one in Zaytun is remarkable because the Israelis, this is a secret invasion. They didn't announce it. And this operation is 24 hours after the Israelis entered Zaytun. So let's take a look at number 3, because there's a detail here that I've been tracking, and I promised you I'd keep my eye on this. And if you look in the upper right corner there, you see the two guerrilla action devices. They're called the Bark, the lightning bolt. They are a small shuad, a lighter shuad that could be carried easier, that could be thrown. This is an adaptation that Qassam has made manufacturing in the field. I pointed it out to you guys in Jabalia when we first saw it. We saw it from the drone footage when the fighter ran up and threw it on top of the...
Think about that. They are taking these improvised explosive devices, running up to tanks, Makava tanks, and yelling Kobe and blowing them up. And this is... How in the world can anyone buy the lie that Israel's saying this is the final push for the takeover of the Gaza Strip when you have operations like this being carried out just this week? Insane. Don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe them when they lie in English.
Merkava tank in Jabalia. Then we saw it in Khan Yunis, where it was thrown into the hatch after the fighter climbed up on the top of the Namr troop carrier and put it into the hatch. So we're seeing a new weapon here, because this is now in Zaytun. So now we're seeing them now across Gaza. These weapons didn't exist before. They didn't exist in this battle or before. And the canisters that you're looking at there on the right-hand side of the screen, those are not the same size canisters as any previous Shawad. The explosively formed penetrator that the Qassam Brigades builds has had a number of iterations, like a dozen of them over the years, going back to 2006, where they've been perfecting the weapon. And none of the canisters of any other versions match that. So we're looking at manufacturing canisters in Gaza right now, filling them presumably with unexploded Israeli ordnance, and deploying them on the battlefield, because the fighters realized that there was a gap in that they were able to get up close to these armored vehicles, and they were routinely seeing them with the hatch open. And this weapon is lighter, easier to carry. A fighter can carry 2 of them, and they can throw them. So they can throw them up onto the top of the tank. And this is an issue in Israel, because there is a heat wave in Gaza right now. And Israel Hayom reported in the paper yesterday, they had a piece on Namr troop carriers' air conditioning failures. The air conditioning...
What he's saying here is 100% correct. It's like, as a Marine Corps vet, like I've never been in a tank, but I wasn't a part of a tank crew, but I have been inside of armored personnel carriers, and then also personnel carriers that are amphibious. But thank God I was never in combat. These were all just training exercises. So, but these things get, I mean, you could easily pass out in there. Like I was in the tropics. I was in, in the Pacific in Japan, and it got so hot that you have to pop the hatch on these things or people are going to be falling out. I can't imagine being inside of these tuna cans that are just hundreds of degrees hot Fahrenheit inside of, the Gaza Strip. It's like, do we figuratively cook ourselves inside of here, or do we open the hatch and literally take the chance of literally getting cooked by the resistance? I don't know.
Failures meant that the cooling system in the Namur failed, and the interior temperature can reach 60 degrees or 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So the soldiers pop the hatches open. I mean, we've seen them pop the hatches in the winter too. But yeah, so Qassam has adapted to the battlefield conditions and manufactured a new weapon in the course of the war. The Namur troop carriers, it was said by the IDF directorate, weapons directorate yesterday, that these vehicles, the tanks and the armored personnel carriers, have clocked 1 million kilometers of service inside the Gaza Strip in the past 2 years. So it's a malfunction of the air conditioners that creates a situation for these weapons to be used. And they quote an officer in the field: "Forces in the field have an impossible decision: disable a vehicle and halt operations due to logistical challenges, or operate against guidelines. Many commanders choose to proceed with operations despite the challenging and the danger." This officer says, "We're not allowed to enter buildings because they're booby-trapped, and we can't enter the APCs because the systems don't work. So what are we supposed to do?" The officer asks.
Get out.
"We're not asking for..."
Stop doing a genocide. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to refuse orders and stop doing an illegal operation and conducting a genocide. That's what you're supposed to do. Fuck your air conditioning. I could give a shit about it.
Luxuries. But these are basic needs for fighting in the summer. And I wanted to put this in because this points to the fact that their machinery, if they were not being constantly resupplied by the Americans every single day virtually, that this war could straight up not happen. Because when those vehicles are taken off the field for whatever reason, because they're destroyed by the resistance, mobility killed by the resistance, or their air conditioners don't work, they are taken off the battlefield. And if they cannot be replaced by American shipments, this genocide would not continue. And so I just wanted to make that point. Let's look at the execution of this Zaytun operation, because this is all one video. I just chopped it up so that we could understand it better. So there's the two guerrilla action devices, and you can see the Yasin 105.
And guys are willing to fight like this in flip-flops and wife beaters. You're not going to be able to defeat them without putting boots on the ground, dude. Without actually walking up face to face and having roving gun battles. Like, forget it. Forget this whole, like, especially they're underground, like Vietnam. Forget this whole, like, we're just going to drop, airstrikes, unlimited, bombing runs on them until they crack and give up. That's just not going to happen. It's not. These dudes are way too committed to protecting their home. It's defender's advantage. They have the zeal of the defender.
There you can see the Yasin 105 thermobaric warhead. This fighter...
I hate to use a sports analogy, but obviously these guys just want it more. They do.
Here in his Qassam shirt is going to have the two guerrilla action devices. And just like we saw on
It's like a cartoon, dude. These dudes are just... just creeping.
Piece of paper in the troop leading procedures. These fighters are advancing from these mounds. They know the way to go to get to this building using the mounds. And now we're going to see him right under, in those windows up there are two Israeli soldiers, both on scope. They're both fearless on their gun. And this fighter is climbed right up. They apparently don't see him until maybe this moment when one of the soldiers pulls back. But there's the thermobaric warhead. Ooh. There's the detonation of the guerrilla action device, the bark, exploding on the Namur troop carrier underneath the eyes of the soldiers. And this operation has been planned so well that the second force comes in. So we're going to see this here one more time. You watch the way that they move from hill to hill as they go here. From undercover, now they're going to move to the first block. And these are all planned in this operation 24 hours after the Israelis arrived there. And this is a Nukba elite commando operation. So they've predicted which building is going to be used, which look at the landscape. It's not that hard to pick which building is going to be used, but they guessed right. And they were prepared for this operation to hit the
Yeah, it's the one with the Nazis hanging out the window brushing their teeth. That's the building we're going to hit.
Israelis. As there's
it's an easy guess.
The two soldiers in the window looking out, and the fighter is right underneath the window, ready to throw his device. He's going to try to throw it into the Namur troop carrier through the open hole. You can see it there. It detonates. You could see the thermobaric warhead on the Yassin be pulled up into position to fire.
That's game, set, match, folks. They are
after this.
Those two have been moved to the ethereal plane. They have been taken out of the game.
Number five. Yeah, this is a continuation. There you see on the left side, there's the archer, Yassin Archer, who's ready for reinforcements. He's providing cover there's the fighters withdrawing. So they have the Qassam unit that has covering fire support for that squad to withdraw. And now these two guys are heading out to hit the reinforcements, predicting that the reinforcements will come on these two routes. And there he fires. And on this one, you'll see as well, this is the fighter is right beside the tank inside the house. If you look in the upper left, you'll see that was the first Yassin strike. And then this guy, you can see the tank helmet pointing out of the tank. He ducks down. But this fighter is spitting distance from the tank. And
Okay. That right there. Let's look at that again. That is not a tank kill. That is the trophy protection system going off. You can just see it. Like if you watch really closely, you can almost see the shotgun-like projectile rounds come out, and you see how it explodes in kind of a mushroom. It's not like one. When an RPG round penetrates like that, it doesn't explode like that in that like poof cluster. That poof cluster that you see, we're gonna call that, is that's the trophy system. That tank is still operational.
But this fighter is spitting distance from the tank and blasts it directly through what would be the front door of the house if that was there. We can go to the next clip. It's the same one to focus on this operation because it's pretty remarkable. He fires this one. He looks like he hits the active protection system.
There you go. Yeah, John's
directly.
on it.
He's aiming for the turret gap, which we've talked about all war, the weakest spot on the vehicle. But he fires in there, and you can see that tank comes along a route that was predicted, and the fighter is in that position ahead of time, ready. So really well organized operation, command and control.
Gotta be fair. Gotta call a spade a spade.
Participating Nukba commandos, and right away, as soon as the Israelis arrive in Zaytun, there hasn't been a formal operation in Zaytun since before the ceasefire. So you're going back to 2024. But these fighters are in their positions, ready to fight at any point. And so the first day that the Israelis roll in, the resistance is able to meet them, and we've seen that in every single location because the resistance is organized in territorial defenses. And that's a really good example of it here in Zaytun. The next one, number 7, we're on now. Here's a return to sender operation, rewiring a Mark 80 series bomb. It's tough to tell exactly if that's a 2,000 pound.
Brother, that's biblical right there. The idea that because American-made weaponry that's what they have, the Israelis are dropping American-made bombs. We literally don't make them like they used to. Our munitions are trash. That they can take the duds, repurpose the explosive content, and make their own weapons out of it. It's biblical. It's like the very definition of being hoisted on your own petard.
Might be a 1,000 pound bomb. Repurposing it here and detonating it against Israeli armored vehicles. Possibly it was a bulldozer, but a bulldozer was definitely hit in one of these operations because you're going to see after this significant explosion because that's the bomb that the Israelis drop from the sky. That's how they get death tolls of 100,000 suspected at least. There's the D9 being towed away. And then there's one more, another operation here, just a Yasin strike against a tank that is also part of this Zaytun operation.
I can't tell from that
Zaytun operation
distance.
began on Wednesday, and we have since then 14 Yasin strikes, 10 IEDs versus armored vehicles.
It looks like another
11
trophy system
strikes
activation.
Just in that first days of the Zaytun operation. We are going to go to Khan Yunis next, because we also have an active operation in Khan Yunis. I'm going to show you this map. You can see the Moreg route there. You don't see the Magan Os corridor, but it comes along and meets around Saladin Road that you can see running up, running from the south to the north. The corridor, the Magan Oz corridor, cuts eastern Khan Yunis from western Khan Yunis. And that's where this attack took place yesterday. The second capture operation attempt along these corridors. Previously on the Moreg corridor, a couple weeks ago, I reported on the 12 fighters that came out of a tunnel and attempted to capture Israeli soldiers. The drones came and the fighters withdrew back down into the tunnel. All of them survived, returned to their base safely. And now we have an operation that was yesterday that was at least 20 fighters, a platoon-sized unit coming out in 3 waves to capture Israeli soldiers on the Magan Os corridor. And these corridors are the corridors that Netanyahu said were existential to Israel's survival, these corridors. This is a base that has hit a forward operating base for the Israelis that was only established a couple of weeks ago. The 20-man platoon size unit, as I said, the fighters emerged from a tunnel 50 meters from the IDF forward base that was established a couple of weeks ago. One unit goes, raids the base where the soldiers are sleeping. A second unit provides cover along the berms around the...
Absolutely nuts. So what's happening here is the IOF is getting hit from behind the wire of their FOBs, their forward operating bases, by resistance fighters that they want to say are on their last leg. You don't conduct operations like this when you're on your last leg, because these operations need time and planning and material to have any chance of success. So they planned this thing, got the material together, and then successfully operated it. And then where these aren't martyrdom operations, they were able to withdraw back into safety. This is the IOF having no operational control in the Gaza Strip.
Outside of the base, and a third team is an artillery team that will allow for the safe withdrawal of the troops. This is the Army radio.
Yeah, not just did they retreat, they had artillery fire covering their retreat. That's insane. That's like advanced, walking the box, advanced Western military tactics. Crazy. Just crazy to think that there's going to be a greater Israel when Israel cannot control this tiny strip of land.
Report of the Israeli investigation into the attack. The attack was carried out by a squad of up to 20 fighters. They don't know. The reason why they don't know how many fighters there was, because as soon as the operation began, as soon as the fighters came out of the tunnel, they fired on the surveillance camera that they knew was there and took,
again, advanced planning,
down Israel's surveillance camera. So they didn't, the Israelis don't actually know any of these hard numbers, because the battle began before anyone had footage of what was happening. And a certain number of the fighters withdrew. So the position was on, as I said, the Magan Oz corridor or Western Khan Yunis. The fighters emerged from a tunnel shaft 40 to 50 meters from the defensive position and split into 3 groups, says Army Radio. Beginning of the attack, the fighters fired at the observation camera and hit it, so the observation was less effective, and the Israeli soldiers only discovered the infiltration after the Qassam fighters were inside the Israeli
They're in
base,
the wire.
and they have no idea.
It's like aliens. They cut the power.
The fighters had tactical vests, Yassins, Shawads, guerrilla action devices, breaching charges to get into the building, and they were carrying stretchers, according to Army Radio, to return captured soldiers. And I said the IDF doesn't know how many were involved in the operation, because some withdrew before the Israelis even showed up. And this battle would have been a mess for the Israelis, but they got air support in time to prevent the full unit from being wiped out and the soldiers from being captured. That is,
which is fine because, like, of course you want to completely overrun the base if you're the hero group, but the idea that they had to call in danger close air support is a victory into itself. Like, you're now putting your own troops, which, you know, Israel has no problem doing. They have no value for human life, so they have no problem calling in an airstrike with their own guys in the vicinity. Like, if you've ever, those of you, again, who don't know what I'm talking about, if you ever watched that stupid Transformers movie where they call in the AC-130 and they call in the Warthog, the airstrike, the big, like, scorpion robot, that's danger close. It's like when your own guys are in the kill box and you have to, like, account for that. These are danger close It's something you never want to do. It's a last resort to be like, well, we're going to be overrun anyway. We're going to be killed. Or like the end of Platoon. That is a danger close operation. We're going to be overrun. Our only option is to call in air support, and hopefully they don't kill us all.
Is just out this morning. I think we'll see if Qassam had cameras on that operation. We'll track this operation coming up and try to show you some visuals in the coming weeks on the show. But there was also a fresh operation in Khan Yunis this week, number 10. 13 artillery operations and 5 qualitative operations in Khan Yunis this week. So we can go to video number 10. Thank you. This is the Stones of...
Still 685 days in, still putting out high quality 4K propaganda videos. You can tell me you have command and control over this place. I don't think so.
This is David Stones. This is the defensive operation against Gideon's chariots. Here we have the fighter. He's quoting Muhammad al-Daif, the chief of staff of the Qassam Brigade, saying, "We are here. I'm rooted in this land, and in it are thousands of seeds. No matter how the tyrants try to uproot us, the seeds will sprout. We will continue on this path, and we will not stop." You can see the fighters in tactical vests, and while they're talking here, the one fighter says, "No, look out the window, look out the window. There's a D9." And they show that they're just right under the noses of these Israeli troops. And then you're going to see here an elevated Yasin strike targeting a tank that's behind that berm there that you can see at the top of the screen. Again, if you're not watching these videos, everything around is completely destroyed. The buildings that are...
And that destruction that Israel has brought onto the Gaza Strip has created their own tank traps. They are the orchestrators of their own demise, because now by endlessly doing bombing runs, they've just destroyed any they make it so their combat engineers, the D9 bulldozers, have to go in first, and they have to clear routes so their armor can navigate the strip. You know, this is something that usually defenders would have to do in preparation to being invaded by enemy armor. They would have to set up tank traps. But Israel's done it for them.
Are standing look like they could be pushed over by hand. But this operation is, you're going to see here, the Sadmia. This is a shock device detonate. It's going to blow the camera out of the cameraman's hands there. So we have a Yasin strike against the tank. Then we have the IED against the tank. Now we're watching the Yasin Archer reload and fire. And now we're going to watch them get away. And as they're going away, this fighter, masked fighter, says, "The men of Qassam, the men of God, we are giants on the battlefield. We are only a few meters away from them, and we're going to show you." And they carried out at the end, the mask.
I'm sorry, when a man in a balaclava starts pointing like this and starts speaking real slow and real deliberate, bro, it's a wrap. It's over for these hoes.
This fighter here is saying, "We say to the entire Islamic nation, God will not forgive those who abandon us, will not forgive those who left Gaza alone." Fighters on the front lines in Khan Yunis, able to carry out these operations. There's no operational control in Khan Yunis.
None.
Next one is number 11. This is 2 Yasin strikes versus the same Namr troop carrier. You're going to see 2 fighters here, one with a camera. Again, part of the difficulty of getting to them is getting through all the destruction. But there you see in the distance the two Namur troop carriers with their rear door facing the weakest point of the vehicle. Fires direct hit. You see it from two cameras because the two fighters.
And there's no trophy system on those troop carriers, because the whole idea of them carrying troops is like the troops have to come out. So every time if there was a trophy system on there, they'd have to activate it and deactivate it every time they wanted to make an emergence out of the troop carriers. Because it would just go off and kill the troops. So that's a kill. That's not only a disabled armored troop carrier. That is also the guys inside are cooked.
Have two cameras. Now they're going to go back behind cover here, and they're going to reload. You can see how easy it is to reload and put the rocket motor in to these Yassins, which have made them such an.
Did you see the RPG? Did you see the RPG round in slow mo?
How easy it is to reload. And put the rocket motor in. To these Yassins, which have made them such an appropriate weapon for this battle. And again, just look at the destruction. There's just random pieces
just getting
that
loose
were houses, just the uprights and supports of the buildings sitting there with the rebar sticking out. All of the buildings collapsed because when Israel failed at their military objectives, they have gone straight ahead on their objectives of making Gaza unlivable. So they're not going to win the war, but they're going to carry out this genocide.
Exactly, John. Exactly.
In horror now for 685 days, because it began immediately on October 7th with serious attacks. Number 12 here. This is an interesting operation, artillery operation. In Khan Yunis, you can see the fighters again, detailed maps. We're going to see in this one the use of drone footage to see where these land. A lot of times these operations we don't get to see where the mortars land, but we know there's injuries from them. The Israelis admit to those from time to time. But here we can see an Israeli base. You can see the triangle. That's over a tank there. And that's a set of buildings that Israel has left. There's a moonscape around it, but there's 3 or 4 clustered buildings there that the Israelis are using as a base. And you can see by that footage, the drone footage, that those strikes are landing right in.
It really makes me wonder, like, if we could go back in time and give the Vietnamese, the Viet Cong TikTok, like what the Vietnam War would have looked like. I wonder how that would change their propaganda strategies. Because you see Hamas is running multiple like media wings. Like the Hamas media wing is crazy. Like how high quality this stuff is. Like their editors, God, I wish I wish they could edit my videos. But yeah, I just wonder what that would look like.
Inside the base, they're landing within feet. With heavy mortars, 120 millimeter mortars, landing within feet of armored vehicles and Israeli troop positions. And these are joint operations that you're seeing happening here. So you see them tie their headbands. This is Sarai al-Quds and the Qassam brigades. You're also going to see the Nasser Salahuddin Popular Resistance Committees in these operations multiple times. And these operations, there's the Nasser Salahuddin brigades, Popular Resistance Committees. These are 60 millimeter, 80 millimeter, and 120 millimeter mortars. Qassam had.
We love solidarity, don't we, folks? Like that's the thing that Israel. That's another byproduct of something Israel did not want. Was they want Hamas to be the big boogeyman, and they want infighting between all the different, because there are, when we say the resistance, we're not just talking about Hamas, we're talking about PIJ, PFLP. This is the other two that come to mind, but there's like different resistance groups, all with the same aim of liberating Palestine, but they have different internal like core values. For example, the PFLP, that's my favorite group. They're the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. I like them because they're secular and also socialist. But they have all these different internal values. But now, because of the existential threat of this genocide, it's forced them to all put down, petty squabbles and all unite as one. Very much Lord of the Rings, the banner, the Gondor calls for aid. It's time to put all childish things aside and link up and kick these invaders off our land.
Has made these mortars since the disengagement. Even before that, they used them against the settlements inside Gaza, and these are Rajum 114 millimeters. These are also Qassam built rocket artillery system that you won't see anywhere else in the world. Now we're going to go back up north. So we'll take a quick look at that map again. So now we're going up to Shujaiya on the eastern side of Gaza City. Operational security had them hold back these videos, but they were released. These are from Gideon's Chariots, but so they weren't from this week, but the videos were released this week. So let's take a look at them. Number 14 we are at right now. The fighter says that we are the Shujaiya battalion and we are advancing on this Israeli position. You can see the fighters are ready. They've been ready in this position. That is an Israeli position that you're looking at in that building. And here they're going to fire F-7 North Korean fragmentation warheads that we've seen throughout the war, and anti-tank warheads. There's a FN mag machine gun
setting up the FN
from the
mag.
Israelis. There were FN mags in Gaza before the war, but we know that they've also captured.
There it is.
They've captured them.
They start doing this.
And again, this fighter's denoting that he's the Shujaiya battalion. And we're going to see here, we're going to see these strikes. We're going to see these again after as well, because I want to put the audio in so you could see, because these are 4 strikes hitting the tank and the D9 in here. Here's one against the tank. You can clearly see a direct hit. We're seeing that from multiple cameras. Again, you can see how easy it is to reload the Yassin.
And that's the thing. Even a kill on a D9 bulldozer, a Caterpillar bulldozer, is still so valuable, because you're not disabling a Merkava tank, but it's going to take. It's like why snipers in Vietnam didn't shoot to kill American troops. You shoot to wound, because it's going to take at least 2 other guys out of the fight to try to retrieve him. You set up a sniper's trap. Same thing here. If you can kill one of these bulldozers, one of these softer targets, one of these troop carriers, you kill one of them on the route that they're using to get their armor up and down the strip. Well, now they're going to have to commit more armor and more men and combat engineers to get that damn thing out of the way to clear that route again. This is a master class in asymmetrical warfare that the Hero Group's putting on right now for the world.
And he can move up here, and this is going to be against a D9 armored bulldozer. He's going to get a direct hit on the side cage. If that's not an automatic, and there's a non-troop carrier, that's going to be
no
the
question
final,
about it. That's it.
Yes,
done dealing
of this set of operations. But this next one has audio in, because I want you to hear the 4 Yassin strikes on the 2 vehicles, one after another.
Oh my God.
So just pretty remarkable.
Imagine just being in that piece of shit bulldozer as a genocider, and it's just RPG rounds are just raining down on you. And you're really hoping for a quick death is what you're hoping for, because you don't want to be maimed out here in the strip. Like, that's not what you want. Ugh.
Remarkable timing and planning of that operation would make a mess of that D9. And you could see it burning with the first strike before it gets hit with the second strike. So again, organized operations. Let's look at number 16. This 16 took a bit of editing. This is a Dragunov SVD, Iranian SVD sniper operation. You can see the soldiers on the back of the tank there. I had to edit out the shooting, but you can see it creates a cook-off, hits the ammunition on the back of the Merkava tank there and creates a cook-off. So the ammo is burning. Maybe Tamara can throw.
So think about, like, what he means by a cook-off is, like, where the ammunition for the tank is stored, it hit that. So now that stuff is just popping inside of there like popcorn. And now you've just got hot molten lead ping-ponging back and forth inside that tank, shredding through guys. That is nasty, man.
My Twitter handle underneath there, all the uncensored videos are all archived on my Twitter handle.
Go check
The
out
next
John
one is
Elmer on
also, if we go to 17,
the twits.
this also had to be edited because this is a direct hit on a tank commander who's coming out of the top of his hatch on his Merkava tank, and he was hit as well. So you can see the full video of that. That was just a short shot. So that's 17. So 18. We're at 18. One more here. You can see the soldier, his helmet there, the triangle, and then we have to match community guidelines for YouTube. He just disappears there. But you can imagine
Magic trick.
Why he
now you
disappeared,
see him, now you
and
don't.
you can
He
watch the
disappeared
full
because he
uncensored
left
video,
the material plane.
on
Put it that
my
way. He's
X
no
account.
longer with us.
So one more here. We have 19. Israel Quds put together a mixtape of their return to sender operations. You can see there's Thaqib, their EFP. There's the anti-tank mines. There is the unexploded Israeli U.S. supplied Israeli airdropped bomb. That's the Thaqib, the EFP. The fighter says, don't worry about your planes. And this is interesting here because this is actually, Trevor Ball identified this as actually an illumination round. So what they got this round that unexploded, but it's just for illumination. So Israel Quds has emptied the illumination filler in the weapon and refilled it with unexploded ordnance. So turned an illumination shell into an IED,
So
back
flare.
into
Okay.
an artillery shell. So this mixtape is showing
That's
the
a
various
proper
operations
Shawaz.
that took place by Israel Quds in Shujaiya neighborhood. And there's the Mark 84 2,000-pound bomb. We saw that before, but they harvested it, and these detonations. This is kind of a best of.
And that goes to show this is not like, again, it's not a one-off. Like, there's so much munitions that are unexploded, and they're able to just reuse them is just insane. Like, the ingenuity and the determination to not die, to just not be murdered by Nazis is just, it's incredible.
That they're showing us here, and at the end of this video you're going to see the M113 robot truck bombs, tank bombs that the Israelis have been using. Again, so this is from Shujaiya. This would be from July. There's the tank operation that we saw in July as well, but they put this together with some new operations to show us the battle, the third battle of Shujaiya that took place during Gideon's chariots, which is David's stones for the Palestinians. There you see the M113. That's what happens to the M113 after it's detonated. And they also show tracks from other vehicles that the resistance has destroyed. But the Israelis are using these robot bombs all over Gaza right now at really high frequency. There's only 4,000 of them that exist in their stores. The Americans gave them to them, and they are too thin for the modern battlefield. There's tracks from a different vehicle that was struck. So the M113s have been just turned into bombs, and they create massive explosions that take out whole blocks because they can be filled with explosives. So they become a much larger vessel to carry explosives than the bombs. There you see pieces of a bulldozer from the spoils of war, the leftovers that the Israelis didn't take, which we've seen them usually take. They drag the vehicles all the way home back to Israel. There's the inside of the M113 just completely emptied out after those blasts. So that